Hey everyone, this is Stelly FT with Closeout, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you the number one reason why most cold calling campaigns and sales calls in general fail, and it's not what you think. I know that many of you might think, cold calling is dead and cold calling doesn't work anymore in B2B. And, I've written about this in the past, why it's right or when it's wrong. But the number one reason I see cold calling campaigns or sales calling campaigns fail is low reach rates. I know it's super unsexy. I know it's something people don't like to think about, but trust me, I've talked to thousands of founders and sales leaders all around the world. And anytime somebody comes to me and tells me, Stelly, we're doing X amount of cold calls, and the end result, the end of the funnel just doesn't convert enough. How can we fix this? I always know that they've neglected one thing and that they're completely unaware of one thing, which is their reach rate. So they always tell me the top of the funnel, say 100 calls a day, and the end of the funnel, we're closing 0 a day, we're closing 1 to a second appointment, whatever the conversions that you're trying to attempt in the first call. So I get the top of the funnel, I get the end of it, but I have no data in between. And I always ask them, hey, what is your reach rate? And they always look at me. People always look at me like with blank stares. I was like, reach rate meaning how many people I reach? Yeah. How many people do you reach? How many decision makers do you reach? You've called this number to reach a specific human. How many times did you succeed reaching that human? So if you just listen to dial tones, if you listen to voicemails, or if you talk to a secretary or some intern or somebody that's not the person you intended to talk to, you didn't reach the person you wanted, so the reach rate is 0. If you dial 100 numbers trying to call 100 people, how many of those people do you actually reach? Now, the most shocking truth is that 99.9% of all businesses out there, they don't track their reach rates. They don't know. And what you don't track, you can't manage. If you can't manage your reach rate in cold calling or in sales calls, you can't succeed in it. I'll give you a simple benchmark. Most cold calling campaigns will have a reach rate, if they're doing okay, of about 10 to 15%. Now, that's not great, but that's a start. If your reach rate is below 10 or 15%, you're dead in the water. Stop making calls. It does not make any sense. It won't get you anywhere. If you're above 15%, you're doing well. If you're somewhere in the 20 to 30%, you're doing great. If you're above that, you are a unicorn in the cold calling world. Awesome. High five. Baller. Great. But most cold calling campaigns will be somewhere between 10 and 50% if they're just doing okay. Below that, if they're not doing well. If your reach rate is not above 15%, you're dead in the water. You can do anything you want, just the productivity level is so low that it's going to be almost impossible for you to make something happen. Think about it. Your reps or yourself, you're calling 100 people to reach 10. It means 90% of the time you're listening to dial tones, you're listening to voicemails, you're talking to somebody that tells you they're going to write down your name and email address to give it to the person you want it to. And you know exactly that they're writing this on their imaginary piece of paper and they're filing it in their imaginary closet, never to be seen by any real human being because you never hear back. It means that 90% of your salesperson's day is wasted. Right? Wasted. 90% of the time, they do something that has zero impact, zero chance of success. You cannot make sales calls work that way. So how do you fix this? Very simple. We'll run through a few simple and tactical things. But number one is you need to realize that reach rates are really important. You need to reach a good amount of people that you're talking to. And of those people that you're talking to, then you can attempt to qualify and close them. But that is the first priority, is how many times do we actually talk to a person? So what can you do to increase and improve your reach rates and your productivity levels in sales calls? Well, number one, make sure you have good data. How many of those numbers that you're calling are actually numbers that are still active versus bad numbers? How many of those numbers still connect to the human you wanted to talk to versus being outdated and now connecting to a totally different business, a totally different person? Make sure that you have some basic hygiene rules in place and when it comes to the data that you give to your sales team and the data that you use as a salesperson. So make sure that you don't have outdated, bad data. track, hey, out of the 100 numbers that I use, how many of those are good? And if it's a big percentage of bad numbers, that's what you need to fix first. So look at good data. Step number one. Step number two, make sure that you call at the right time, at the right day, right? So a lot of a lot of times we are just calling at the wrong time for this type of person, right? And it's very hard to generically say what a good time and a good day is to sales call somebody, but I can tell you that generically speaking, universally speaking, a good rule of thumb is that Monday mornings and Friday evenings are not great days to reach people, right? Those are not the best days in the business world to reach people. Monday mornings are very, very busy, very distracting days for most people coming out of the weekend, jumping back into the work week. It's not a great day to call somebody out of the blue. Friday evenings, people are checked out either mentally or physically. They're already preparing for the weekend. Not the best time in the week to call somebody. Those are generic rules, but in terms of what day or time will work for your industry, I don't know. You should experiment. I know lots of people that have figured out that actually calling CEOs on Sunday afternoons at the office is a very good time, because Sunday afternoons, a lot of these people go to the office because nobody else is in the office, so they prepare the week in peace and quiet. Nobody's there, so they pick up. Sometimes you have to call super early. Sometimes you might want to try calling super late. You need to mix it up. Sometimes calling at lunchtime, which seems unintuitive, might be good. So I give you a few unintuitive options, right? Sunday evening, super early in the morning, 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., or during lunchtime. Those are not intuitive times. That's why sometimes these are the best. But I can't speak universally. It depends on who you're trying to reach, what your ideal customer is, and how their week and workday looks like, but you should experiment. If you always assumed it's a good time to call people Monday to Friday between 9 and 11 a.m., then you might want to try something different and see what kind of results you can generate that way. So make sure you do good data, make sure you call at the right time and the right day. You need to experiment, collect some data to figure that out, what that means. The next thing, and this should have been the first thing, so I mixed this up, but this is really, really important, really crucial and foundational. Make sure that you're calling people that pick up the phone. This seems so simple that it flies over the head of most people. But when I challenge people why they chose sales calls as a channel, the phone as a channel to succeed in the B2B market, most people haven't done their homework and they don't really know. They just assumed. Ask yourself, is my customer the type of customer that buys via the phone, that picks up the phone, that answers when somebody calls, right? A lot of people do, but a lot of other people don't, right? If you call CTOs, this is generally speaking, you might not find a great response or reach rate because lots of CTOs or lots of technical people, VP of engineering and that type, lots of engineering type of people, they don't pick up the phone, especially from a number they don't recognize. But then there's other people, head of PR, head of HR, head of marketing. These people might pick up the phone more often than you think. So it really depends on who you're calling and who you're trying to sell to, if the phone is even a viable option or not. And I would highly advise you to ask your customers, the people that you get on the phone, the people that you've talked to, ask them, hey, do you pick up the phone? Are people calling you? Are people selling you through the phone? What's the best channel to reach you and your colleagues? Get educated directly from your customers to learn how to get more prospects and customers like them. Okay, the next solution or the next option or tip in terms of increasing your reach rates is to do it in a timely fashion, especially when you have interaction with people. So a lot of times people send out a cold email first before actually making the cold call. It makes lots of salespeople more comfortable. It gives you something to hold on to. You can tell them, hey, I sent you an email. I wanted to check in. Did you see it? And today there's lots of modern tools that allow you to actually see if somebody opened your email and notify you at the time that they opened the email. When you get somebody to respond to a piece of content of yours, like opening an email that you've sent, you want to call them within 1 minute of them opening that email. Your chances of them not being busy, not being in a meeting, them knowing who you are and having context around the conversation is really high. Another thing I see a lot of businesses not do is inbound leads, right? So they'll get somebody to fill out a contact form and say, yes, I want to talk to a salesperson in your company. And then they'll call that lead 5 hours later, 3 days later. That's horrible. If you call them later than an hour after they fill up the form, you might as well cold call them. There's studies that show that your reach rate is going to be 100 times higher if you call them within 3 minutes of them signing up or filling out a form on your website on a landing page. So if at any point a lead comes to you, make sure you call them within a super timely fashion. Your reach rates are going to skyrocket, and with that, the productivity of your sales team and the success of those campaigns. Once you have a little bit of a bigger team, you really want to look at the tools that you're using to make calls, right? Do you have your team manually dial phone numbers? I mean, that's insanity in 2017. Do they really like look up the phone number in their CRM and then dial the number on a general phone? That'd be crazy. Do they, use maybe 2 or 3 pieces of software? You have your CRM and then you have some kind of a VoIP tool, so you have to switch back and forth between software. We have a customer at Close.io that used to be with a very, very large, I'm not going to name names, but a very large kind of industry-wide CRM, a CRM that you've heard of. And they were testifying that it would take their sales rep an average of 12 clicks from identifying a prospect in the CRM all the way to calling them. 12 clicks. It's a massive amount of waste. The most valuable resource your salespeople have is their time. Don't make them click 12 times to make one simple phone call. They switched from that big CRM provider to Close, and now they went from 12 clicks to 1. Think about that. That's a productivity increase of more than 10x. It's insane, right? So make sure that you use a tool like Close. I know I'm biased, but just because I'm biased doesn't mean it's untrue. A tool like Close that is a CRM that integrates VoIP two-way. You look up a prospect, you click the phone number, it calls it right out of the tool, it tracks it automatically, no manual data entry, no back and forth, no manually tracking, I just made a call and this and that happened, just everything beautifully integrated in one tool. And once you have a bigger team, you actually can do some more magical stuff, right? You can make sure that your tool has a power dialer. So something that allows your sales team to identify a list of people they want to call, just hit go, it calls one prospect after the other, so you don't have to go back and forth, you don't have to search for leads, none of that stuff. And once the team is even bigger, even another layer of technology you can use is a predictive dialer. That will empower, that's a piece of software, or in some cases like us, Close might have this integrated, where you have a team of 5-10 people, and the software actually dials if you have 10 salespeople, potentially 20 phone numbers, and drops the phone numbers that go to voicemails and they just ring indefinitely, and just connects, anytime a human picks up, connects that human with your sales rep. So for you, from a sales rep perspective, all you experience is you hit go, and boom, you hear somebody say, yes, this is John Bauer, and then the salesperson goes, hey, my name is blah, 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 this and that is what we do. And the moment the sales rep hangs up the phone, boom, the next person goes, hey, this is Tim. And you talk to one person at a time. From a sales perspective, now your reach rate is 100%. You talk to a person every single minute, right? You have zero waste. It's magical and mind-blowing in productivity. But it only works once you are a bigger team. You can't have a predictive dialer really work when you are 1 person or 2 people. You need to have a bigger team, bigger lists to really go after this and make this magical technology work for you. So these are all the things, the basic things that you can do to increase your reach rates and make sure that cold calling and sales calls are productive and you even have a chance to crush it and be successful with it. And then there's some other basic things, right? I'm going to just go through them really, really quickly. Please, 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 please don't lose the prospect at the hello, which is what most salespeople do on the phone. On the phone, you have a few seconds to make a real impression. Most people speak way too fast. Most people speak way too nervously on the phone, and then as I'm trying to figure out who is this, why are they calling me, you've already lost me at the hello. And I've written about this and talked about this before. We'll link up to this in this video. Make sure that you have a sales script, that you have clarity on what you want to say. You have a structure and a design to your conversation. Don't have to be a robot, but you don't also have to come up with a new conversation on the fly. This is not improv class, this is sales calls, right? And then make sure that you have a simple objection management doc. Figure out what are the top 5, top 10 objections we hear on the phone. Be prepared for them. Make sure you have written down some simple answers you can answer with clarity and confidence and comfort, so that the prospect is comfortable and wants to keep listening to you. I've written about this before. We'll link up to these resources as well in this video. And make sure that you are warm. Really, the problem with doing cold calls or sales calls and reaching so few people is that you'll never really warm. You'll never get warm. You'll never be in the zone. You know, if you talk to one prospect every 4 hours of sales calls, you're always going to be cold. Cold meaning you're not in the flow of things. You're not comfortable. You're not in a rhythm, in a groove. You're not in the zone. Think about you being a professional athlete. You want to warm up your muscles, get your blood flowing, get the rhythm going, be in the zone. So when you get on the field or when you have to play, you're in the zone and your best to really perform. If you sit on your butt for like hours and hours and I push you on the field on the whatever it is that you're performing, and I ask you to sprint or to play basketball or to perform any kind of sports, you're not going to be the best you can be. Your level of injuries are going to be really high, which in sales calls means people screaming at you or hanging up on you or emotionally injuring you. So you need to be warmed up to be at your best, and you can't be warm, you can't be in the zone if you make 100 dials and you reach 7 people throughout an 8 or 9 hour day. You need to be talking to people again and again and again and again, and these tips and tricks are things you need to do to make sure your reach rate is really high and your success rate has a chance to be high as well. All right, I want you to crush it. Please share your thoughts and feedback below the video. Make sure to go to blog.close.io and subscribe to our blog if you haven't yet. Twice a week, highly tactical and strategic advice directly from us to you. If you ever want to get in touch with me personally, just shoot me an email, stelly@close.io. Always excited to hear from you. Now let's go and get them.